Hello. I forgot to play my Patreon video. I will have to do it in the evening. Well, not in the evening. At the end of this particular broadcast, I can play it then. I am all out of sorts. Can you tell? Can you tell I'm a little bit out of sorts? I am not 100%. So it's all crazy. I wasn't even certain if I was going to do a show today. It's like my mic is like all up in your junk. Look at that. Way up there. So let me fix my mic real quick. This is like the only stand that works with my desk. So I'm all out of sorts today. Just a lot is going on. So I thought I would share the different things that are happening. Okay. So as you know, I'm in academia. I got a Wonder Woman's got a chip on her mug. That makes me mad. I'm in academia and I've been teaching chemistry at a local community college for about 3 years. Hello, Sir Marvin. Hello, Sinister Porpoise. And I absolutely love my job. I'm building a mentoring program from the ground up. Been working on that for a little bit. I also coordinate international speakers to speak remotely at this tiny little college, and they hadn't had that happen before. So I've coordinated international speakers, had them broadcast to 4 different campuses. Did this several times, not just once, not just twice, several, lots and lots of times. I've gone to conferences. I've become part of the high impact practices department as an added responsibility. And I teach other professors how to effectively teach by incorporating teaching study skills, incorporating that into their lectures, as well as use of technology. So we might not have funding to keep me around. We might not have funding to keep me around in the fall. Hey, Doc Fearsome. Fearson. I said it with an N. So my boss is going to try to make a case for me because enrollment's down. And usually when enrollment's down, that's when they start moving people out. And in the past 3 years, I have done so much for this college. Hey, Zalrock. That my boss has said I've become a linchpin in the department. He said I'm basically Liam Neeson from Taken. He said I have a highly specialized set of skills. Discrete structures, Professor. Oh, goodness. I have a highly specific set of skills that have managed to move the department forward by leaps and bounds in a short period of time that they couldn't do for years. And I may not have a job in the fall because of funding. So this is absolutely mind-blowing to me. And the thing that really sucks about academia is that you have professors who refuse to change. They refuse to learn. They refuse to adapt to their ever-changing student population. Technology moves so quickly. And as, a professor, you're going to have to adapt and evolve or die. Look at Jordan Peterson. Let's talk about that trash fire. Oh my gosh. He is so bigoted against diversity, and he doesn't see the value and the importance of diversification of a department, of an educational institution. People with different life backgrounds can offer perspectives to solve a problem that you would never even think of. So it's like, ah, and it's weird because my boss does not want me to go at all. I've managed to build a mentoring program. Once they let me be in charge of it and become the coordinator, I got like 55 kids signed up in a day. In a day, and I'm still getting people asking me for help. I have students who look for me specifically. Um, I'm known across the campus because of my dynamic lectures, because of the talks I give at the college. I mean, I literally have trained professors how to use OBS, how to use digital technology, digital labs, and incorporate that into their lectures. I've taught professors how to use scaffolding and modeling through graphic organizers, incorporating that into their lectures and helping students learn how to study for their class while they're teaching the class. So it's not like it's a special separate lecture. This is how you study for my class. It's just ongoing. And if you just tweak a little bit, your students will benefit from that. So I've been doing stuff like that, and I'm considered junior faculty. And I mean, I still have a pretty decent bell curve when it comes to A, B, C, and D, varying degrees of grades. But I also have multiple forms of assessment. I don't just have 3 tests and that's my whole class. Um, because I recognize not everybody tests well, and a test is not an accurate representation of a person's knowledge. It's just not. I know this because I don't test well. I could bomb a test, but I could sit here and talk about the content all day. Um, I could sit here and talk about the content all day and completely make an F on a test. I know this. So I know this because I've done that before. Um, American Chemical Society's chemistry tests, they're ridiculous. They're absolutely ridiculous. There are professors who have taught for 15 years who would fail or not even make the 90th percentile on those tests because they're ridiculous. And that's not an accurate representation of knowledge. I mean, come on. You need multiple forms of assessment, and there are professors who will never do that. They won't bend, they won't change, they won't try new technology. They just want that, just and I get it, but you have to meet your students where they are at. And if your students came from a high school that used Promethean boards and whiteboards and things like that, you're going to have to understand at some point you're going to have to meet them where they're at and understand what they're used to. And if you're wanting to just use a chalkboard, that's fine. But you're going to have to spend a lot more time explaining to your students um, how they're supposed to follow you because they are all tech savvy and you're not. Um, so it's frustrating that there are professors who will be sticking around, never changing, never moving forward, never contributing to the enrollment issue, just stagnating. And here I am going, I've done more in these 3 years than you have in 15 or 20. Okay. And to me, that's not phenomenal. So in my head, from like a personal perspective, I don't feel like I've done anything that I wouldn't normally do. And apparently, that's phenomenal to some people, and I'm going, "This is just regular for me, and I love my job." So it's like, I love science communication, I love using technology. I the goal is to help people understand the content. That's the goal. So it makes me nuts that I'm even in this situation. And I understand, I do. We have a pandemic. I am the latest hire. Yes, but in where I'm at, students can go to my college for free because the state will pay for it. Your first 2 years of college are free if you go to a community college. So that's free. And I just told all of my students in one class to just take back their lab manual or at least get a refund because it's still on back order. I'm like, I'm just going to write your labs. I'm just going to write them. I'm going to follow a similar format, but I'm just going to write the labs. And we're just going to do what I'm going to do. Y'all get your $45 back. I mean, so I'm literally writing a lab manual while I'm teaching this class, and it's not hard for me. That's what's funny. It's hard for other professors, but it's not hard for me because I love this stuff, and I've been doing stuff like this in my brain already. Um, and I'm genuinely, like, and generally well liked at this college because of the work that I've done. The president of the college knows who I am. Um, People in different departments know who I am, and they're like, "Yeah, no, she's good." And so other professors will message me and be like, "Can you teach me how to use YouTube Live?" Hey, Purple. They'll ask me to teach them how to use YouTube Live and, OBS, and I'll show them how to do the things. Um, and I'd show them how to set it up, how to do events if they want to use YouTube. And honestly, a lot of students have that app on their phone. As much as I really like using the online course setup that we have at the college, where you can embed YouTube videos into the course. Again, you got to meet the students where they're at. They have TikTok, they have Twitter, they have YouTube. They have access to all kinds of apps. Even the homework I assign, it's through Pearson. Pearson Mastering has a freaking app. So I assign them homework that they can do through their phone. So they don't have to sit at the college if they don't have a computer. They can just be at work on break doing their homework on their phone. Um, I have a Google Voice number that only my students have, and it is an app on my phone. They can text me at 3 a.m. if they want to. I won't read it at that time, and I've told them that, but they can text me anytime they want to, and I promise them, I keep telling them, "You're not bothering me. If you panic at 3 a.m. about a paper or a test, shoot me a text. It's okay." Um And and I don't that's not above and beyond, you know? Yeah, YouTube Live is an awful interface, yeah. It is, but you can watch you can watch a video on your phone, um, through YouTube. So I have students now asking me to make videos about how to make a graph in Excel. They're like, "You just explained that so easy." Um And that's, like, my job. I'm like, "Okay." Uh, so my boss has told me he asked me to give him a list of everything I've ever done at the college. So I updated my resume/CV, and I sent it to him. It's now 5 pages long. compared to Doc Savage, whose resume is freaking 13 pages with an appendix. Mine's 5 pages, so I'm getting up there, Doc. I'm getting up there. Um, I mean, I've got experience building online courses at this point, both hybrid and fully online. I've got experiences adapting open education resources. Um, you know, open education resources, which are free to students, and using that as part of their education so they don't have to pay for it. Hey, Rick. Hey, bigzebra.com. I'm not on an adjunct pay. I'm full-term I'm full-time faculty. But they have to open up a full-term position in order for me to stay on because of red tape and paperwork and policies that they have. Goodness. So it's a mess. I like openoffice.org. I actually learned on openoffice.org. But a thing that the students also need to learn is how to use Microsoft products because a lot of jobs require you to do that now. So I try to use a lot of that in my courses again. Hey, Krabby. So again, it's like there are professors who are stagnating and not reaching their students. And so if they're tenured or whatever, they have seniority. Here I am moving the department forward in ways nobody's done in years. And I may not have a job in the fall because of funding. And I'm the lowest one on the list because I was the last hire, you know. So it's frustrating. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how much work I've done. I mean, it does. In the grand scheme of things, it does because I've gotten a lot, um, a lot of work. I've gotten a lot of work done, and I'm building something that's probably going to be lasting. I've already built a couple lasting things at the school in this mentoring program. It's a lasting thing, and it's something that I can build and be finished with in a couple of weeks. As long as they give me the go ahead and give me the tech that I need, it'll be done, and I can set it up. I can get a rubric together. All of the professors in our department will have access to it. We'll be able to track student progress through 2 different locations. Students will only have to sign up. It's like a course setup. It's free. And so while they're enrolled at the college, they can sign up for this at any time, and it'll have open education resources available to them. Um, they'll have access to all the professors in the department, and that's something that people really, in order for that department to survive, you're going to have to professors who are just not good with meeting with students. And I've encountered some students who and it's not even that sometimes the student just doesn't understand a particular professor as well as another, or they have a better rapport with another professor. This gives them a space, an opportunity to go and get help with their homework and stuff with a professor that's not necessarily their professor. Now, I'll tell you, I'm tight with everybody in the chemistry department. We all like each other. We all work with one another. We give constructive criticism and feedback. Um, and we help each other out all the time. We have a group text. Um, we give each other ideas. We share resources. I mean, there's so much collaboration between the chemistry people, and you don't see that in other sections in the department. And I even collaborate with biology people. I've got somebody in the English department who's wanting to do a learning community in the fall. And I'm like, I don't know if I'll be here um, because of funding. And a learning community is a high impact practice where you have students who are taking, like, for instance, an English class and a chemistry class because they usually have to take a science. So, and they usually have to take English in some form. So you work together and you do dual assignments to where they get credit in English and they get credit in chemistry, and expressing yourself effectively in a science style paper. That's very, very important. And if you're taking chemistry, more than likely, you're going to get a science degree. Um, and so then you get all of that. And then if you're writing a paper in English and you need to put in a graph, you know, there you go. You're getting some graph skills as well. And I have people who want to do that with me. And it's two completely different disciplines, but working together to where we can meet, we can talk about, what they're struggling with, ways to overcome that. That's going to be the future of freaking academia. And it makes me nuts that I might not be a part of this college anymore. But the upside is that my boss, because he's a wonderful human being, has already started to let me know. And he's like, look, just in case, here, call these people and start applying there. I've got some people you can speak with. So that's nice. I've also applied to a science communicator position at NASA. That's a Hail Mary, if I'm honest. It was an open call. They want somebody with broadcast and producing experience, and basically it's to on-camera talent that's associated with explaining NASA discoveries and helping experts explain their science, coaching them on how to talk about it. That's my wheelhouse. I have a whole degree in it's instruction, curriculum, and leadership. That's essentially my master's of arts in teaching. It's that. And then I also have that master's in chemistry. And they don't require you to have degrees in this, in anything. But I tell you, it's really helpful if you're going to coach experts on how to talk science if you've literally been doing that for 10 years. So, Science Doggo's okay. Big Zebra. She's sleeping over there. She's been super needy lately. Hierarchy, newest hire seems like a need for compartmentalization. That's true, Rick. Thank you for the $5 super chat, Sinister Porpoise. It would really help if certain right-wing grifters did not discourage college education as well, for real. Hey, Scapegoat Iscariot. Hey, Nether. It's crazy. Working with your peers, don't you understand the cutthroat competitive world of capitalism? I mean, I imagine some of my peers may not like me because I'm super into using tech and stuff like that, but I mean, it doesn't matter. But to be fair, education methods have changed too. The job for the past year has allowed me to see that they're actually trying to engage multiple learning styles. Yes, Sinister Porpoise. That's essential at this point. But you'll encounter professors who they're like, here's 90 slides for a lecture. I'm going to zoom through them. Hope you read all of them, and I'm not going to give them to you later. You just better write everything you can and don't record me. I don't like that. I'm just going, I don't know how they do that. Scapegoat says, I am loving the backdrop, not afraid to burn in hell. Oh my goodness. That's funny. Uh, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think they will. I put a link. The thing that's hard about the NASA job is that it was an open call to the public. So they probably got thousands of, resumes uploaded, and I went ahead and uploaded my transcript. That's a bit of a war zone, my academic transcript. If I'm honest, my undergrad years dropped out twice, man. I have a year of Fs on my transcript because I dropped out of school, due to life circumstances. But my grad school grades, I got a 3.8, 3.8. I think I made 2 Bs, maybe 2. I made 1 B for my first grad degree, and I think I made, like, 2 Bs in my second. I had As and everything else, and I finished all of my qualifying exams with exams left over. Um, so it's crazy. Um, so yeah, I went ahead and uploaded my transcripts. I'm applying to some positions, uh, in 3 different states. Well, the one at NASA's in Florida. I'm looking at a position in Arkansas, another one in Mississippi, and I'm also looking at one in Texas. Um, 2 Bs or not 2 Bs, Nerdy Rodent. Uh, it's gonna be weird because I have a mortgage here, but I do have people who contribute to that who live here, so it's not like it's a big deal. I could go and keep my mortgage here. Now, if it was a NASA gig, that'd be alright, but I'm thinking about getting a little trailer, just going and staying in a national park and teach that way, and then come back to my house when I want to. Oh, gosh, it's funny. So maybe I'll get that. Maybe I'll get one of those. Oh, yeah, the positive reference should be good. We'll see. I think they wanna make certain people have the experience, so the first thing is do you actually have the experience that, is required here? Okay. Do you have an education? If you don't have an education, okay, that's fine, but the people who do probably get bumped up a bit more. I mean, that would be cool. I feel like I put on, like, 40 pounds, 30, 40 pounds over this pandemic, and I've been trying to lose it. But I feel like I'm a bit chunky for the camera. I feel like I'm too chunky for the camera. So part of my anxiety is like, you need to lose that weight if you get that job at NASA. But I can do that. Woo! That is a viable option, but I don't think you can stay for months on end in a national park. Man, I'd be willing to try. I stayed in one up in Missouri a couple years ago. Not this past summer, but the summer before. And it was great. It was so nice. I had electrical hookup, I had water, and it was like $10 a week. I was like, "This is great. I could just do this forever." I was completely fine with that. There's like this kind of, "Oh, they live in a trailer?" I'm like, "Give me a car and a little travel RV in the back. I'll just go and hang out at different parks and stuff for, like, the rest of my life." I'm okay with that. It wasn't that bad. I finally fit my hair with the red. Is that what you mean? Oh my goodness. So it's been a rough Friday. I had that dropped on me, and I knew it was a possibility, but I don't know 100% yet. I don't know 100%, if and the VP is the vice it's up to the vice president to open up the position. He's pretty new. Um But there are people in admin who want me to stick around, and they're aware of the search situation. But it's nice to know, and it's nice to hear my boss say so many wonderful things about me, and say, I really want you to stay, which is, I mean, that's nice, but it sucks that he's got to go and make a case for me. Um, I wish I could be there and say, so I could add like an actual face to the list of stuff, but we'll see. I'm just gonna keep going until I do and see what happens. Got a feeling NASA will bet mostly resume from academics who don't really know how to engage a live audience. Yeah. Well, they're supposed to have broadcast and live camera experience. While this isn't well, it's technically national. If anybody wanted to watch it all over the world, they could. And, you know, it's not NBC or CBS, but it's a thing still, you know. Oh, goodness. 30 days, I think. Yeah, I think 30 days, and then you just re-up. You can keep re-upping. It's re-up for a while in advance. ScientistMel, you finally fit your hair. I'll sit in the back for the rest of class. Thanks. Oh, you mean because I'm chunky. Thank you. Thank you for that. Man, it's crazy. I see. Can't stay for you just have to keep moving. Kansas has free houses apparently. Huh. Yeah. Fearsome. Tell them if they let you go, they'll earn the ire of many anonymous people in your side chat. Yeah. It's so frustrating. It's just so frustrating. Um, well, anyway, that's what's been going on. And I can talk about other stuff. Let me pull up a thing. Um, I don't know if you know about this. Let me see. I'm trying to see if I can pull this up. All right, I'm just going to share a screen. I'm just going to share my screen. Yay, other stuff. So I'm giving say I'm giving it away. I'm not giving it away. This is going for an auction for Lavender Lady. She's got to pay some medical bills, and she's a wonderful human being. And so a bunch of us creators are getting together to if we can't do like a live stream for the auction, we can at least donate things. So I'm donating a swag bag, $75 worth of stuff. It's valued at $75. You get a t-shirt of your choice, you get a mug of your choice, and you get a print of your choice. Those three things, and you bid on it, and you can find all of my designs at scientistmel.com/shop. If there's something that you want, that you'd like designed, that you don't see there, I am happy to make it for you and send it to you on a mug, in a print, or on a t-shirt. All three if you like. So I have different stuff there, and you can check it out. $75 worth of swag, your choice on what you want it to be for that. And now for something completely different. That's right, Doc Pearson. Yes. So the Lavender Lady fundraiser is to help cover the costs of care after her kidney transplant. So she's been in renal failure for a while, and the dialysis is exhausting. All of that. So I'm getting together a swag bag that, it will be auctioned off, and you can pick what you want in it, any print, t-shirt, and mug. So there you go. Whatever design you want, whatever design you like. Either from my shop, if you want me to make one for you, I can make one for you. It's all good. Okay. All right. So let's talk about I had put up some things on our stream on the stream here at discussing different quacks and things like that. I'll just say on my on my Twitter, I have been blocking angry Johnny Depp fans for days now. I don't even know how many days it's been going on. I think this is day 3. They're almost as bad as the Rogan fans. I'm like, I just don't care. Um, I just don't care. And I've 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 just been blocking people. Well, you're not scientific because you don't change your mind with new information. I'm going, the more information I get, the more I think they're both terrible people, Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. I think they're both awful people, at least to each other. I mean, it's just at least to each other, they're pretty terrible according to the voicemail messages, the text messages, all of that stuff. I'm like, I think they're just both abusers, but that's not acceptable to the Johnny Depp fans. They want to yell at me and tell me I'm stupid. And it's just, yeah, we're talking about Depp right now. And this whole thing came because there's new stuff about J.K. Rowling. This whole thing came from me pointing out that J.K. Rowling defended Johnny Depp when the allegations first came out. She just outright she's just outright defended him for any reason. Even he was casted as Grindelwald or whatever. I like Harry Potter. And I had just said, guys, it's okay to like Harry Potter, even though J.K. Rowling's a walking human trash fire. I mean, she's terrible. She's not interested in women's rights or keeping women protected. And I pointed out whether the allegations were true or not, she immediately defended Johnny Depp when those allegations came out. It didn't matter about guilt or innocence right then. She didn't have all the information. She just immediately defended him. And I'm like, he's been shown to be abusive. And it's just it's just I'm like, okay, so she outright defended him, and he's admitted to, being physically, a thing. I don't know. There's a voicemail where they're both talking about how they were physically abusive to each other. I'm going, okay, so he is a wife beater, but so is Amber Heard. She's a husband beater. They're both terrible. Okay, they're both volatile. They both are violent to one another. They both do terrible things and are verbally abusive. They're both abusive. Um, and just because Amber Heard has come out to be shown to be abusive as well, does not mean Johnny Depp is innocent. You know what I mean? So I can't get this through people's heads. So I'm just going to assume they're both terrible. And so I pointed out that J.K. Rowling was defending this man outright. And so she's not really interested in protecting women. It has nothing to do with the safety of women because she's so quick to protect an abuser or even an alleged one. Um, so it's just, and I pointed that out. And then I said, okay, but it's still okay to like Harry Potter. And I pulled this perspective from Will Wheaton. Will Wheaton, hi, Mr. Shadow Kitty. I pulled this perspective from Will Wheaton. He's like, because he was essentially abused by his parents. He didn't want to be in movies or TV or any of that. Um, And some of his fans were like, I really felt great when I was watching you in Star Trek and stuff like this. And he goes, hey, those feelings are still valid. So listening to Will Wheaton explain, because the Buffy thing, it's really, some people are having a hard time because Joss Whedon ended up being just awful. You know, it's okay to still like those shows. It's okay to still like Harry Potter, despite horrible people being at the helm of it. There were hundreds of other people who made that art. There were hundreds of other people who contributed to making something that would bring you joy. They are worthy of your admiration. The people who worked on Harry Potter, the directors, the producers, the actors, the lighting crew, the CGI folks, the stunt people, all of these people contributed to that project. And it's a huge project. You got, assistants, you got makeup, you got costuming. You have this whole collaboration of hundreds of people. They're worthy of your affection and your admiration for the work. It's not just J.K. Rowling. It's like all of these people all of these people who are not walking trash fires are worthy of your happy feelings associated with that stuff. So I was pointing that out because I've really been thinking on this a whole lot because I freaking love Alan Rickman as Snape, and I'm a chemist. I'm a potions master. I'm a chemist. I get to be House Slytherin. Defense against the dark arts. I'm like, nobody's going to take that from me. It makes me feel good. You know So it's just, if that brought you joy, I'm still gonna watch Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't care about Johnny Depp. I love Orlando Bloom. And I love that film, the first film, because it was so much like the ride, and that was one of my favorite rides. Um, it felt weird kinda watching some of that stuff at first. I'll go see the new Harry Potter film. I'll probably wait till it's, streaming or something. Uh Because I like Mads Mikkelsen. He's awesome. I love him. I mean, I would be upset if he came out to be an abuser. Uh, but I mean, then I would rethink things and then I'd have to deal with that and come to terms with it on my own in some way. Um, but that's my take on that. So I was trying to help people have a space because people who have feelings and care about trans people like I do say, okay, JK Rowling's trash. She's not interested in women, protecting women. I'm just her motives aren't there. I mean, I don't see it. Um, and it's okay to like Harry Potter because she's not the only person in the world of that. So that's what I think about. And that's what I was pointing out. And then for 3 days now, Johnny Depp's not an abuser. I don't care. You missed the whole point. And Johnny Depp doesn't care what I think. Hollywood doesn't care what I think. If they did, it'd be a lot different. you know, It'd be a lot different if they actually continued to let women be in charge, which is how film started, by the way. The Gina Davis Institute, they came out with a film about the history of women in film. Started out women. Women were the directors, women were the writers. That went away when it became a capitalist endeavor. Um, and so all the banks got involved. We don't want no women folk running things. That's exactly what happened. So check that out. Check that out. Women were pushed out of Hollywood and kept in the fringes when they were the pioneers of it is pretty crazy. But then again, we see that a lot, don't we? With computer science, um, you know, lots of physics, um, biology. Women will be doing things and the men don't like it. So it's crazy. So it's weird. Scapegoat says, "How could I have not considered the thousands behind the character?" I mean, you think about it. It's one way to think about it. You're right about how many other people are involved. It sucks that the work of so many often gets cast aside because of one high profile asshole. That's right, Purple. I mean, and that's true. I feel like it's a bit different for like Michael Jackson. There weren't like hundreds and hundreds of people working on an individual song. I feel weird. I haven't sorted out how I feel about the Michael Jackson art and thing. I have a hard time with that. Some people have sorted it in their heads. To me, I hadn't quite sorted it, and that's okay. I'm not gonna yell at other people about it. There's just no point. I don't get why people yelling at me about freaking Johnny Depp, man. You think he's sitting here reading your tweets? He don't care. Well, he was nice to me when he signed my picture when I met him that one time. Okay. He's probably like that with everybody else. Hey, Sly gentlemen, stay safe. So it's just crazy. I need to do something with my hair today. I'm going to do something with my hair today. See you on the flip side. Um, so I wanted to bring that up. I've just started blocking people. On my Twitter. I just don't even care. You're unscientific. No, I'm not. This is an opinion. There are no scientific facts here. We don't know anything. Neither one of us was in the bedroom of Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. I mean, it's a terrible situation. Yeah, I know. Isn't that terrible, Purple? It's like all these other actors and all of these other people involved in a thing because of Bill Cosby, And it's just like, it's funny. Okay. Moving on. I went and saw the Spider-Man film last night. I hadn't seen it yet. Um, I haven't seen it yet until last night. And people were like, "You haven't seen Spider-Man No Way Home yet?" And I'm like, "I know. I should turn in my geek card." Um, so I finally went and saw it, and they talk about that in the film when Peter Parker is revealed as being Spider-Man. All of his friends end up not getting into college, and they start having all of these problems with the public and stuff like that because they're just, guilty by association. Just because they're friends with Peter. Uh, and by the way, it's a great film. It's a great film. It was so well done. I thought it was just so much joy. Tom Holland, he's I I barely watched the Garfield films, I barely watched um, the Garfield, Spider-Man ones. I saw the Tobey Maguire ones. I barely watched the ones with Gwen Stacy. Um, and then I watched all the Tom Holland ones. Uh, so, I thought the film was pretty great. The interactions between the 3 different Spidermans, um, the interactions between the 3, um, the funny discussion about how the web comes out. Because, I think it's James Garfield is his name, and, Tom Holland, they have to have cartridges. They have to have cartridges and Tobey Maguire, it just comes out of his wrist. And of course, Tom Holland makes the comment, "Does it come out of anywhere else?" And I was dead. I was dead. But Peter would ask that question. Um, to me, Tom Holland was the perfect embodiment of a kid trying to be a superhero and dealing with all the kid things, which is exactly what Spider-Man is a kid who has all of these responsibilities dropped on him suddenly. and he's just doing the best he can, and God, it was heart-wrenching. I, like, was crying in a couple places, and I don't like to cry at movies, guys. I don't like to pay to cry. I do that for free all the time. So I'm like, "I don't wanna pay to cry." This is why I don't watch a lot of Disney movies, you know? I don't wanna pay for sadness. So it's just, I thought it was great. I really thought it was a great film. Right when the heavy stuff hit you and all the feels were hitting you, it was very well written to where you had another moment to where it lightened up the mood, but that's just kind of what Marvel does now, they have but they did gloss over Black Widow's death. Spoilers, she's killed, in one point, but not in the Spider-Man film. But that made me kinda mad that they glossed over her death so much, and Tony got, like, a parade and all kinds of stuff and probably half an hour funeral, we're sitting here, we're like, "Okay." And I love Tony Stark anyway, but, so it's just kinda, I really liked that film. I thought it was great. Spider-Man: No Way Home, Doctor Strange, in the way that Doctor Strange and Peter interact, I felt like it was me. "Nice to see you, Rick." I felt like it was me talking to one of my undergrads. "You mean you didn't call the college? You decided to do this first instead of calling." It's just 'cause they don't know how to college. So, it's pretty funny. I felt like, "This is super relatable. I'm Doctor Strange right now in this situation." At times, I felt like Doctor Strange, at times, I felt like Tony Stark, at times, I feel like, like Black Widow. So, it's really interesting to have that mix. Scapegoat is scary, and I'm sorry. Yeah, he's just wrapped up in a whole lot of hot mess. And it was just an abusive relationship on both those parts. Maybe he's not that way with other people, and that's entirely possible. It's just sometimes you can be toxic with a certain person. Um, like there's somebody I know. It's not we can't be friends. Not because they're a bad person, but because they're bad for me. And I'm bad for them. And it's not that I'm abusive to them, but I can't give them what they need in a friendship, you know? Um, and I can't do that. I can't do that. And they rely far too heavily on me to the point it becomes abusive and toxic. Not that I think they're trying to do that, but it's still abusive and toxic. But they may not be that way with somebody else. It's just you've got it's just the nature of things. So yeah. Uh, I feel like I got a knot in my hair. This is so weird. Okay. I've been a little bit out of sorts. Yeah, there were like 6 people in the theater when I went and saw it Purple like yesterday, last night. It was around 4 p.m., so I got the matinee. And they had recliner seats. I forgot that they had recliner seats. But the cup material was so weak, I spilt my soda on half of myself. I was wearing like gray and black, so it's all right. Like I just bathed myself in soda in the middle of this Spider-Man film. And then I went and had sushi afterwards. It was nice. There's a really nice sushi place not far from there, and I had some spicy sushi. I like spicy. Um, so yeah, it was cool. So Spider-Man was fun. Um, I thought I would talk about Omicron, the latest villain, the latest Star Trek villain, Omicron. We're being attacked by the Omicrons, Captain. Man, I know, a solid cup, man. I honestly had not been to the theater in years at this point. I think the last movie I saw in the theater was Suicide Squad, the first one. The first one. That was right before the pandemic. So I felt like I could spring some money on some popcorn and sodas because I probably won't be going back for a while. Uh, so I didn't feel so bad doing that. Just had a nice evening out after having to deal with the other stuff, and I'm just like, "Okay, I'm gonna start applying to different schools, different colleges, and see, and apply to NASA. Hopefully, it works out, whatever happens. He that hath steerage of my course direct my sail." Although that was, a bit of foreshadowing of death in Romeo and Juliet. I still kind of feel like sometimes I have no control over some stuff. So I just try to make good choices for the things I can. Omicron sounds like a transformer a little bit. Well, let's talk about Omicron. They figured out some things, guys. They figured out it has a different mode of entry, which we thought might be a case. Um, is it Scientific American, I think? I was reading that article on. Yes, I think this is it. It's Strange Anatomy. Okay, here we go. I'm going to post this in the chat. Alrighty, I'm going to post this in the chat. Let's have a look at this, shall we? We're gonna talk some science. All right. So here we've got Scientific American. Omicron's surprising anatomy explains why it is wildly contagious. So we already know that COVID-19 enters into the cells through a receptor called the ACE2 receptor. But there's a secondary receptor that has allowed Omicron to enter into cells, primarily like the lung cells and that sort of thing. Well, now that was usually how like Delta got through it, required these two receptors. Well, Omicron just needs the one in order to get into it. So here are the mutations. Look at that. We got the little red balls. That's where the mutations are. So what happens is with COVID-19, they've got all of these different spike proteins on the outside, the things that kind of look like flowers. Um, the things that kind of look like flowers. Well, while Delta was particularly, harsher with the symptoms because it infected lots of different cells, it was more system wide. Omicron's mostly been staying in the lungs. Well, not even in the lungs, in the upper respiratory part. And that's to do with the fact that it can infect those cells a lot better than Delta could. And that's because of their spike proteins. So previously, you see some of these have single sticks. Well, it seems like these spike proteins can break off kind of easily, and which reduces, for Delta, a lot of those spike proteins would break off, which would reduce the infection rate up in the upper respiratory. And so the virus would go deeper into the lungs until it would manage to connect with another cell. Let me open image in new tab. I'm going to open this up here. All righty. So here, this is Scientific American. This is how Omicron can evade the immune system. That's a good question, Scapegoat. ScientistMel, is Omicron in the same line of virus all the way back to SARS? Is COVID all of its variants SARS? Yes. Well, this is SARS-CoV-2. So you had SARS-CoV-1, which was like the H1N1, the swine flu. Well, this is a SARS-CoV-2. It's like a different species. It branched off, but it comes from the same SARS line. Well, as this one branches off and divides up into different types of the virus, it still goes back to that SARS. It's weird. We still, we track it that way. Alrighty. So let's demystify this language. So the immune system evasion. How is it that Omicron can get around the immune system? Antibodies try to attack the novel coronavirus or SARS-CoV-2 by binding to the areas on its spike protein. So these spike proteins are kind of like keys, and the receptors that you have on your cells are like locks, and they fit in there pretty great. Well, antibodies work like to gum up the keys. So they'll attach to those spike proteins to prevent the virus from entering into your cells. Well, the Omicron variant has lots of mutations. That's what these little red balls are. And the mutations to those amino acids in two important regions. And that's these red areas. These are really important regions here. And these are what they call receptor binding domains. So this is where the keys are. So inside one of these spike proteins, you've got three little sections of the key. All right. And that's what binds to the receptor on the cell. So you've got very specific mutations that have happened within the key aspect of that receptor. And it's what's called on the N-terminal domain. What that means is nitrogen. It's the nitrogen end. And as a result, antibodies that would ordinarily neutralize it, they don't, because they don't recognize that N-terminal. That's a good question. Purple rhymes with words. So if it evades the immune system, does that make the vaccines less effective in preventing it? Yes, to a degree, but it's still better to have the antibodies, because when it comes down to it, if you're getting booster shots, you're getting more antibodies. And those antibodies will bind to some of that virus. And that increases your chance of not being infected by it. So antibodies will still bind to some of these receptors, and that will trigger your immune response to go and take out the virus, which is the goal. Those antibodies not only kind of gum up those keys and prevent the virus from entering into your cells, they also signal the immune system to take out the virus. So as long as you have a couple antibodies attached to it, yeah, it could still infect a cell in another region. You're still signaling your body to have an immune response. So it's still important to get vaccinated. And as they change, we can look at the messenger RNA of this. And if we need to develop a new vaccine, we can do that. We can change that spike, that spike protein, to where your body will make antibodies to hit it. So that's what's happening here with this particular virus. And that's how it's able to do that. All right. So this is kind of how, where did it go? There's some dialogue here. All right. So scientists are reaching a consensus about what makes Omicron so transmissible. And most evidence points to a single potent mechanism. Among the variants, Omicron has an unparalleled ability to hide from the immune system. And that's what it's doing with this. I'm trying to find, it's stabilized. So when Omicron drastically altered its spike protein to hide from the immune system, those changes eliminated some chemical residues the spike needed to attach to ACE2. So what happened if we look at this older variant, so we've got an older variant. Notice that those spike proteins kind of broke off, and we've got a split spike on these this older COVID-19. Well, those would break off pretty easily, which would reduce the risk of infecting cells. But this is how Delta was able to go a bit deeper, because it wasn't attaching to stuff so quickly up in your upper respiratory. It would enter into your body and go well deeper until it would eventually attach to a cell that it could. That's how the Delta variant was getting into various other parts of your body instead of infecting just your upper respiratory system. So here, like an older variant, like kind of like Delta, we have less intact spike proteins because they split pretty easily. With Omicron, they developed a chemical bridge that strengthened the spike protein. And since it strengthened the spike protein, it's enabled to infect you better than Delta, because it's able to attach to your cells a lot faster because it doesn't have broken pieces off of it. And so these little small bridge mutations strengthen the ability of COVID-19 to enter into your cells. So it didn't have to go all the way down your throat, into your lungs, then into your blood system, and that sort of thing, in order to attach to a cell. It could just stick right away, just like boogers. You know what I mean? It was just right there. So a greater number of intact spikes make it easier for Omicron to infect more cells. And that's the difference between it and Delta. Then if we look at, let's see, there's another, here we go, Tempest 2. It's slipping into the DMs of your cells. Across previous variants, there's been one constant. Now, not just the ACE2 receptor, but the virus relies on a protein of the surface of human cells called TMPRSS2, TMPRSS2, to help it break through the cell membrane. But Omicron isn't using that. It's taking a wholly different route into the cell. Instead of breaking down the front door, it slips through the side. So let's have a look at this image. All right. Older variants, you notice here on this older variant, it would have its receptor and then the additional little protein there to kind of nudge it right into place. And I think this is the alveoli in your lungs. We'll just call it that. That's what I think that's supposed to. Oh, okay. Alveoli in basically your nose and in your lungs. So here, there's like a little helper protein. Not every cell has that. Just about every cell has the ACE2 receptor. But there are a lot of cells in your body that do have that TMPRSS2. And that was kind of helping Delta because it had like the broken spike proteins. It was kind of helping Delta to get into your cells. So here, if we look at Omicron, it doesn't need that helper protein, which makes this kind of worse to a degree because it can infect your cells faster and better. So if this got into your bloodstream, if this spread and was an uncontrolled infection, and you didn't have much of an immune system and you didn't have any antibodies against this thing, it could put you in the hospital because of the fact it doesn't need that extra protein. It's got plenty of spike proteins on it. So what's happened here? Evolution's like, okay, so you made antibodies against our Delta variant. We're just going to make more spike proteins and we're going to make them better. and we don't need your little helper protein anymore. Screw that guy. So a lot more cells do not have that helper protein, and a lot of them happen to be up in your upper respiratory system. So these things are sticking on your cells like boogers on a wall. Sorry for that, but it's like you don't need any helper protein. It's just getting right into those cells pretty quickly. Um, so they don't need that Temperance 2. But the good news is they tend to stay up here, and if you've already got antibodies, and here's another thing, if you happen to get an Omicron infection and you've been vaccinated previously, you're gonna have a really strong group of antibodies, if as long as you don't have, like, autoimmune disease or any immunocompromised type of situation. Um, you're gonna have really good antibodies because you're being exposed to the new strain. You've got all the old antibodies to kinda slow that infection rate, and then your body's gonna make brand new antibodies for this version. So, it's just a win-win to get vaccinated, honestly, and get your boosters when you can. I doubt very seriously that this virus is gonna stray from using the ACE2 receptor because it's so common on just about every cell in your body. Um, it doesn't have to use the Temperance 2. So as long as you're making more antibodies, and even if you get COVID, Omicron, if you've had your booster, you had your full set of vaccines, you're still gonna have enough antibodies to slow that infection. And if you do get infected a little bit, in this case, as long as you have previous antibodies, the likelihood of you getting seriously sick is really low, and you're just gonna make better antibodies. So let's see. It dropped its defenses. Instead of the alteration that has created a surprising weakness, rendering the variant more vulnerable to our part of bodily defenses known as the innate immune system. So here, scientists examined the responses from Omicron and Delta to small proteins called interferons, which act like highway flares that alert innate immune cells to invaders. Delta was masterful at subduing the interferon response, but Omicron was terrible. It actually activated the interferon signaling. They don't know how this change came about, but at the same time, we can still see consequences of that change. At least 11 of the coronavirus's 26 proteins interact with the interferon system, and those are mutated in Omicron. So let's see. Because the lungs are characterized more by more pronounced interferon response than the upper respiratory tract, Omicron's vulnerability to that response may prevent it from spreading to deeper organs. So again, it's signaling that innate immune response. It's got all of the right stuff to get that initial immune response going. Then the secondary immune response would be from the antibodies. Um, so while Omicron's impact on our whole population is not mild, including a giant surge in hospitalizations and deaths, and a record number of hospitalized children, it does cause less severe disease in some infected individuals as well as in animal models. Those who are unvaccinated or have other risk factors are still at greatly heightened risk for severe symptoms and death because they don't have the antibodies. Let me catch up on the chat. Hey, optimistically cynical. So it's wrong to kill people, but not wrong to kill viruses. I don't know about that. Is it okay? Scapegoat says, is a person who is vaccinated against 19 immuno weakened towards Omicron? No, you're not. If you're vaccinated against COVID 19, Omicron is a variant of COVID 19. You are not weakened to that. I'm tired of taking precautions. Let's just pretend the virus doesn't exist so I can stop wearing a mask. All right, I feel that. How is it you can get Omicron again within weeks? That's a good question. I think it's Paniota Papas. Um, they're still learning more about Omicron, but from what we see, it depends entirely on your antibody response if you've been vaccinated. Um, if you have any autoimmune disease or if you're immunocompromised, there's a lot of different variables that take part in that. But it's still possible for you to get infected. But with Omicron, as I mentioned just a little bit ago, with this mode of entry, it is possible for you to test positive for it and not have any symptoms because of how easily it can infect your cells. Now, if you have a lot of antibodies, the likelihood that it infects a lot of your cells is really, really low because those antibodies will help to prevent Omicron from entering into your cells. Now, it's probably going to get by some of those and still infect you. It could still, I might have been infected, um, but I'm not dying in the hospital. And I still wear a mask just in case I carry something. Uh, but as long as you're getting your booster shots, you're reducing your risk of having, any kind of major symptoms. You never found out which variant you had? Perps. Oh, okay. From what I'm seeing, Omicron can seriously affect anyone even with the vax. Again, well, it depends on what their immune response was and if they got the booster shot. You can still get kinda like icky feeling like flu-like symptoms, but the majority of the people in the hospital and in the ICU unit are the unvaxxed population. You might know a couple of people who've been vaccinated and they got sick. Are they elderly? Do they have any autoimmune diseases? Are they immunocompromised? Did they actually get that booster shot? There's lots of different reasons for that. So viruses aren't really alive, they don't reproduce and don't maintain homeostasis. Um, they're not really alive. They require another cell in order, like a human cell or an animal cell, in order to make copies of itself. Nether says it can affect everyone, but it orders of magnitude less affect those vaccinated. Yes. Hey, Maya. I work at a retirement home. Wearing a mask is just the socially responsible thing for me to do. That's certainly fair. Well, that's good news and the opposite of what I thought. Well, I'm glad to hear that, scapegoat. I've seen patients getting the third, second time around. I'm a frontline worker. Well, are those patients actually vaccinated? And are they elderly? Do they have an immunocompromised situation? Um, I mean, there's lots of different factors. Okay. So the elderly, as you get older, your immune system doesn't work as well. Um, and that's just part of aging. Your thymus starts to shrink and you're not able to produce such a strong antibody response. There's been a lot of debate in the past about whether or not elderly people should still get vaccinated against things like pneumonia and the flu. Um, but they still err on the side of we need to see if they can still make antibodies just in case. Um, so the effectiveness of a vaccine on an elderly person. Oh, you've seen young people pass away? I mean, it is affecting children, but we don't have a vaccine for children ages 5 to 12 right now. Well, under 5, right? We don't have a vaccine for children under 5. And given there's a high resistance, particularly in the schools, to wearing masks and reducing transmission. I mean, I used to teach high school. I don't want to go back to that situation in Dang, yes, only 5 to 12. Um, and so my heart goes out to you. My heart goes out to you dealing that. I actually went to nursing school and got all the way into clinicals, and I'm like, "I don't wanna do this." So I have a respect. I do have a respect for nurses and our doctors and our frontline workers. Um, yeah, about 35. Yeah, about 35 is when your immune system starts to really mess up. And then you're talking about if you're talking about kids, young people, yeah, this thing's hitting young people too. Um, and if they're school age, you know, a lot of places aren't requiring kids to wear masks. And so you're just spreading it around over and over and over again, just like a really bad stomach flu. Um, it's just it's frustrating. And I recognize that this is quite the strain on our healthcare system. Um, and I really feel for our healthcare warriors, you know. I really feel for them. This is super, super tough time right now. Um, but yes, and if you're curious, maybe I should have Doc Savage back on to do another Q&A. He is a world-renowned immunologist, and he's really good at this stuff. Yeah, it is all over the world. He's really good at this stuff. He's currently the senior director now at a European scientific company. I won't say which one, but it's a big one. And he helped with the rollout of the vaccines. He helped develop the HPV vaccine. He does cancer immunotherapies, and now he's running a company. Um, and so it's pretty cool. Um, but maybe I'll bring him back to do another talk on my channel about COVID. And you can have a look at the stuff he's done lots of things on my channel before, lots of stuff on my channel. He is. And I didn't even know he had done he has just always been my friend Doc, you know? I didn't Google him. I knew his full name and everything, but I'm like, I'm not gonna Google him. That seems weird. You know? And I went and hung out with him for a little bit. And he's given talks at the college where I work a couple of times, and he offered to do that. I didn't ask him to. He's just a really nice man. Um, and then he sent me his resume. Yes, the BA.2 and 4 variants are being investigated now to see at their level. You're right with that. Um, so he's on the science side of this, and he's worked in pandemic response, has like diplomatic status. I mean, it's crazy. And so when he sent me his resume, I'm like, I knew you did stuff, but my God, I didn't know you did stuff. I'm fortunate to have some really awesome friends and that can set me straight and let me know. And I've verified his work. He's a pandemic guy. So I listen to him. I listen to him. Yes, he is. He's a great human. Um, and he's really smart. And I got him on speed dial. So, but he's great, and he's been a rock at times, and I've really been struggling with stuff, so he's just a good person too. So you can check out some of the stuff he's done on my channel. Let's talk about something that's popped up, and then I guess I'll let you guys go. There's I read this, and I'm not surprised by it. Um, I'm gonna open this up. Here we go. Let me put this in the side chat. Here's a darker side, um, to something that's really kind of bothering me quite a bit, and part of the reason why we have so many issues, particularly in the US, is that doctors are still prescribing ivermectin. This was released on NPR about 3 days ago, and they have about a 6-minute listen for this. I don't think I shared the audio on this, but, um, let's have a read. So, Ben Bergquam was hospitalized with COVID in January. He says he brought his own prescription for ivermectin, an unproven therapy. He's a right-wing journalist with an America First t-shirt. So he lost his sense of taste, smell, having 105-degree fever. He felt like garbage. He said in a Facebook video he shot and he lay in a California hospital. Let's see. Let's see. Let's have a look at this. Hold on. I might have to stop sharing and then reshare so we can hear the audio. So you guys can hear it. Okay. Let's have a listen to see what he says. Okay. I can't hear that because the sound isn't on. One more time. Yes, it is freaking horse paste, man. It's crazy. Now they do treat malaria with ivermectin, but that again is a parasite, you know?
To those of you that just saw the video I did yesterday, or this morning, 2 a.m., I got about an hour of sleep tonight, but I'm actually feeling better than I have in 2 weeks. I just wanted to kind of bring you guys up to speed on what's been going on.
He's having a hard time breathing.
Didn't say anything for a number of reasons, and I debated on whether or not to say anything at all, but I think it is important for a number of reasons. First off, I'm in the hospital right now. Had COVID, got it on the 23rd, came to California, celebrate Christmas with our family, and my Christmas gift was losing my taste and smell and having 105-degree fever and just feeling like garbage.
Yeah.
I never got to do Christmas or New Year's yet, but God is good. In all of this, God is good, and I want to talk about that. I'm in the hospital. One thing I will recommend, bring your own meds, because there's no guarantee that what they're going to do, especially in a state like California, is in line with what's best for you and your health. And so they've been great here, but I avoided going to a hospital the longest I possibly could.
So here we have a guy who is worried about going to a hospital in California because of them not giving him ivermectin pills. The confirmation bias that we have going on with the American public, where they're listening to people like this. They think they know better than doctors. Yeah, and they don't usually allow a patient to bring their own meds. They don't. And then if you have a prescription, they ask you what it is. If you have the bottle, they take the bottle and then they verify the prescription and call your doctor. As far as I know, that's been my experience. Maybe it's different. So I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he has somebody who brought it for him.
Just to give you an update, kind of walk you through what I experienced. One was, so when it hit, I knew it. Talked to somebody who said they had been exposed and that they had gotten tested and they were positive. I chose initially not to get a test because I didn't want to be added to the system. And the first thing, the worst part about all of this is our loss of trust in our medical system. We've lost trust in our government, in our politicians, in our mainstream media, and so many other, in education, and so many other areas of society. But to lose it in our medical system because of what the CDC and the Democrats.
I was with him here for a second. He was like, we've lost trust in our medical doctors, in mainstream media. You listen to Fox News. I mean, Fox News is about as reliant on like science, as, I don't know, freaking Joe Rogan. I mean, people watch things that make them feel good and align with their particular perspectives. So it's like, oh my goodness, I lost trust in my politicians. You guys are right. I mean, this guy is generating a loss of trust. I've lost trust in my politicians. But what I haven't lost trust in are the general consensus of science, because I know if you don't, I'm just going to throw this out there. If you don't follow Elizabeth Bick on Twitter, there's a whole website called pubpeer.org, and it's brilliant. It's absolutely wonderful. If you don't want to, if you're like, I want to watch an intellectual soap opera, intellectual drama that's happening in real time, go check out pubpeer.org, and you will see scientists absolutely destroy papers without apology. Um, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. The thing that people think, the common misconception about scientists, particularly the ones making the medicine that the doctors prescribe, is that they somehow are all in cahoots together. There are some that are in cahoots with big pharma. I mean, it's just how the world works. But then you have everybody else who has absolutely no dogs in that fight, sitting there looking at the crap. They want to be the ones to take you down, because there's nothing so great, nothing so great when you see a scientist completely destroy a paper, and then you see other scientists completely destroy a paper. You want to be that person. You want to be the person that takes them down, because that's like a "you got served" moment, you know what I mean? You got served. There was like a dance off between scientists, it'd be that. So it's just, scientists will destroy each other over bad data, because they know you have people who will die believing this crap. And then they have to spend all of these years going back trying to undo this crap because of a couple of fringe scientists and fringe doctors who basically verbal diarrheaed everywhere and are following that. So it's just, and he says he doesn't want to get tested. How are you going to get treatment if they don't know what's wrong with you?
And Fauci have done over these last couple of years, the tyranny that we've seen, it's a shame.
Tyranny?
But I went several days
What did Fauci do?
with it.
I mean, Fauci sat here and told people what to do, and they didn't do it. Tyranny is when you force people to do something. When you force, tyranny would be forcing somebody to do something or you kill them. We have numpties, anti-vaxxer, anti-maxer, masker numpties walking around thinking they know more than experts in the field. Fauci didn't make anybody do anything. There is no tyranny. There is no tyranny. And asking you to get vaccinated because there's a public health issue, I mean, the moment they came out with the polio vaccine, they didn't even ask parents. They just showed up and started injecting kids. Okay. There's ethical concerns with not getting parental permission, but those parents were like, please vaccinate my kid. I don't want another baby of mine to die. So it's just, oh my God.
uh, Planning to get better, take in hydroxychloroquine, take in zinc and system,
Have you
or
shoved
excuse me,
light bulbs
zinc
up your butt
and
yet?
vitamin D, and all of that, the regimen. And
Regimen from who?
I had 3
Or
really
from
terrible
whom?
days, and then it seemed to be getting better, and then all of a sudden, I got this really terrible cough,
Yeah, you did.
and just felt like hell, and the fever
I
came back,
bet.
and so I finally went in
Because
on
the
day
virus
8
doesn't care that you took
and
vitamin
got
D because
the
it didn't do anything.
the clonal antibody treatment, and then that.
This is what's so funny to me. Okay. And you're right. I noticed somebody mentioned something about the health insurance companies. You're right. Servin Marvin, Servin Marvin. That's what I said. Sir Marvin of Booley. You're right. This is what makes me nuts. People will take the monoclonal antibodies They will take the monoclonal antibodies and they'll say, please give me that treatment. But they won't get vaccinated. The monoclonal antibodies either come from goats or mice. Okay. How do I know this? I worked in industry. Okay. I worked down the hall from where they make monoclonal stuff. Okay. So come from goats or mice. So you're getting antibodies that were generated in animals from a farm injected into you. Um, you're getting antibodies that were generated in a lab, essentially, from injecting the virus into goats or mice and collecting their antibodies. And then they're giving you those antibodies. Or you could just make your own by getting a vaccine. All natural antibodies from your own body. It just makes me nuts. They'll sit here and go, "Well, I got the monoclonal antibody treatment. That made me feel better." Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? Why you think that is, my dude?
That's when I got on. At that point, I realized I may have pneumonia, and I got on azithromycin. And then
Okay. Pneumonia is bacterial. All right. Hell, Mel, they can't even get that treatment up here because they don't show up and say they are sick within 10 days and then bitch about not being able to get that treatment, says the crabby hermit. Oh my goodness. Bond says, hey, Bond, vitamin D doesn't help at all. I mean, a well rounded, nutritious diet helps you stay healthy in general. Just taking vitamin D pills isn't going to do anything for you. It'll just give you vitamin D, which might, I mean, if you're deficient in it already, that might be something you need to do, but you should talk to your doctor if you feel like you have a vitamin D deficiency. Take an extra, you're just gonna pee it out. Whatever your body doesn't use, you're gonna pee it out. And D, that's a fat soluble vitamin. A, D, E, and K are your fat soluble vitamins. So honestly, your body just pees out what it doesn't use. So I mean, you could take 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C. I wouldn't recommend going huge on any vitamin because you can wreck your kidneys. Um, so consider just eating a nice, nutritious, you know, set of veggies, 5 small meals a day. It's just nuts. Um, just eat well. Most people are deficient in vitamin D. I mean, that's why they in the US, because a lot of inner city kids before they had Central Park and stuff like that, um, they incorporated vitamin D into milk so they could get that vitamin D. But yes, same goes for zinc or vitamin C. That's right, Pana. Can I call you Pana? Panyata? Panyota? I don't want to say your name wrong. I think that is the big thing. People these days haven't faced multiple family members dying from stuff kids are required to be vaccinated against to get into school. That's right. So people are like, vaccine mandates. I'm like, come on, guys. You guys got vaccinated when you were kids just to go to school and to college. Uh, COVID pneumonia. Okay, what COVID pneumonia is, COVID-19 is a virus. And a lot of times when you're positive for COVID-19, they'll start you on an antibiotic because you might develop pneumonia, a secondary infection, which is bacterial, which happens. My brother-in-law, when the Delta hit, before vaccines came out, he got Delta, and then he got pneumonia on top of that. And so they had to treat both. He's all right now. Trisha is fine. Okay, thank you, Trisha. Yeah, eat real food. Yes, Delta hits the lower lungs, and the Delta can spread more so to other organs in the body. And other organs in the body do have that ACE2 receptor. It's pretty prevalent on lots of places. And since Delta um, doesn't always attach to cells right away. It allows it to spread a bit to other systems.
And ultimately, I've had taken 2 other antibiotics. That I think saved my, well, a couple things. Jesus has been with me
Antibiotics.
this whole time.
Who made those antibiotics? Doctors and scientists. I just love how he'll just pick a couple things.
I was praying through it, got closer to him, closer to my family, and they all got it too, but they got a much milder version of it. So when I got the antibody treatment, that along with the antibiotics and everything else I think that I've already been doing, the Ivermectin, and God bless the frontline doctors. I couldn't get California to prescribe, doctors in California to prescribe ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine or anything that
They won't
me as a
do that
patient
because they
may
don't work.
think that based on my doctor's counsel is good for me. But God bless the frontline doctors, Dr. Cullen, thank you so much. So I got about halfway through, 8 days in, or 8 days in, I got the antibody treatment and got on
He's not
antibiotics.
breathing so great.
And even for the next couple of days, I really felt terrible. I was waking up middle of the night with chills, sweating, my whole.
Because you're taking medications that don't do anything against the virus. And they're probably making you sick.
Just my whole body was wet from sweat. I'd go to the bathroom and I couldn't breathe. I'd come back and just to be in convulsions. But I still didn't want to go to the hospital. And one of the main reasons I didn't want to initially go is because I didn't want to be.
I'm so sorry to hear that, Krabby Hermit. Lost 4 of our crew family members in 2 months. I'm so sorry. I lost 2 family members. They were elderly, within a span of about 2 months of each other. That happened right at the kickoff of the pandemic. We're still uncertain. We knew one had cancer, and we knew that it was that. The second one we think might have been COVID, but we're not sure.
Added to the list of the tracking and all of the other garbage that's going along with this stuff.
Tracking. Okay. You have to keep up with who's got COVID and where. I mean, that's what they did with SARS-CoV-1 with the H1N1. They were allowed to do their job, and they were allowed, we had a pandemic response team in the White House. They were allowed to do their job and isolate and track where this virus originated and zero in on where it was going. This is standard procedure. Tracking where a lethal virus is moving. They did that with HIV. Once HIV came out, they had to start tracking to see where it was going, who might have been exposed, so they could learn more about it. I mean, for all intents and purposes. I mean, there was even laws that came out that if you have an HIV infection and you knowingly infect another person, it's called involuntary manslaughter. I mean, it's just like, it's just, I can't. These individuals who don't understand, who are uneducated, they're unwilling to learn. Yeah, I get it. They're scared. They don't trust people. I get that. That's largely due to Fox News and propaganda mills. It's largely due to that stuff. And they won't listen. They won't listen. And he said before, we don't listen to teachers. We don't listen to educators. We don't listen to scientists. That was fine. Now we can't trust our medical professionals. I'm like, there's no reason for that. There's certain reasons for certain individuals, but it's like they don't understand the fundamentals required and what actually goes on behind the scenes. This is called recency bias, right? This is called recency bias. If the pandemic response had been allowed to do their job, this stuff would have been likely been handled at the get-go. At the get-go. They would have tracked all of where, those patients, those first initial patients. There's 17 cases. Well, you didn't isolate them. You didn't track where they went. You didn't track who they encountered. You didn't do any of that. It's just but people don't understand that. They only see the after thing, and they're like, "Oh, well, H1N1 was no big deal." Yeah, and they came out with a vaccine pretty fast, but nobody's complaining nobody complained about that because nobody was mildly inconvenienced by wearing masks and stuff, and because they're asked to, you know, trust doctors in the middle of a life-altering pandemic, this makes me nuts. Yeah, spot on. Thank you, Trisha.
So I avoided that, that until my oxygen levels got below 80.
Then you went
And
to the hospital
it's scary when you can't breathe. It's not a fun place to be.
because none of the
And having
medications you were
asthma
on
growing up
were
and
working.
everything else, it's just, it's not, I knew something was worse, was more than, it was getting worse. And
Let me jump
that's the concern.
ahead.
I get prepared. And frontlinehealthusa.com, if you want to get some of the zincs and some of the other things to stay any of the rest of this garbage till we secure our border.
Let
Some
me
people
jump
have
back
asked
a little bit. Here we
out
go.
of here, I'll be on oxygen for a while. They say in order for the lungs to heal from the pneumonia, it can take 6 to 8 weeks.
You got COVID. You
But
don't have, I mean, it's
COVID
just,
actually tested negative for COVID, thank God,
oh, you tested
yesterday.
negative for
So
that.
I'm
If he
praying
went
that I'm
below
moving
80,
on
he would
beyond
have had a
that
tube down his throat,
and going
probably.
into the next phase. Couple things. Hold the CCP accountable. We have to hold the CCP accountable. This was designed, it was controlled, and we have to hold the Democrats. Joe Biden, the Biden border variant. I don't want to hear anything about COVID from the Democrats till we
Oh
secure the
my
border.
God.
That's
Until we
it. I don't
secure the
want to hear about
border.
vaccines, and I thank God that I didn't get any vaccines. I just don't trust them. I don't trust the government right now.
It's not the
And
government who
but
makes the
that's it.
vaccines. That's what's making me nuts about all of this. Okay. Okay, so Bergwin told his audience he wasn't vaccinated despite having had childhood asthma, a potentially dangerous underlying condition. Instead, he held up a bottle of the drug ivermectin. Almost all doctors do not recommend taking ivermectin because it doesn't work, you know? Um, so Berquam's testimonial, this is where I want to get at, provides new and troubling details about a small group of physicians who are willing to eschew basically the best COVID-19 treatments and provide alternative therapies made by popular disinformation for a price. People are getting hustled. People are getting hustled. It's used to treat parasitic worms and malaria. There's no evidence to show that it works against COVID-19. They discourage prescribing ivermectin. And doctors and hospitals, most of them will not give it to patients. Um, there's a small minority of doctors. This is it right here, who are willing to write them, often using telemedicine to do so, according to Kalina Koltai, a misinformation researcher at the University of Washington. The same doctors frequently promote anti-vaccine conspiracy theories. Just so you know, medical boards are starting to shift their policies. They're starting to shift their policies on promoting misinformation. There are doctors who are losing their medical license for promoting misinformation. And these doctors are profiting off of that. All right. So, America's frontline doctors, their leader, Dr. Simone Gold, is currently facing multiple charges related to her role in the insurrection at the Capitol on January 6, 2021. She spreads anti vaccine propaganda. I'll just post this back in the chat again, just in case you missed it. This is what gets people killed. Your fringe scientists that confirm the biases, the bias, or what is it? Biases. I don't know. Anyway, they confirm the bias of individuals who are already diving headfirst into conspiracy theories because they're afraid. Let's be honest, they're afraid. And the fear side is a lot louder than the rational side. And so it's easier just to dive headfirst into that fear side and just keep feeding that because it's so loud. So even with a modicum amount of stress in your life, that fear side that it becomes louder than the rational side. I mean, we have science for this. A lot of psychologists, a lot of psychiatrists, they talk about this. So people who buy into conspiracy theories are usually afraid, usually have a lot of stress going on, and that rational side of their brain is super freaking quiet. All right. So these doctors are profiting off of that. Um, so this individual, Dr. Simone Gold, she tells audiences across the country to give her a call for prescriptions of unproven drugs like ivermectin. Her group charges $90 for the call, and Coltai believes the prescriptions are among its primary sources of income. So I would reckon that telehealth and telemedicine is one of the major income generating streams for America's frontline doctors for that particular group. Um, so last year, an online hydroxychloroquine, I think that was malaria. I think ivermectin is also used for parasites. Did I get that backwards, Clockwork? If I got that backwards, thank you for correcting me. Um, thought ivermectin was used for that as well, and hydroxychloroquine was malaria. Oh my god. Just trying to get the misinformation correct. Neither treat COVID-19. Um, so The Intercept published a story based on hacked documents which showed that the group was potentially making millions by selling thousands of prescriptions. Selling thousands of prescriptions of this. Uh, oh God. So the guy was talking about Dr. Cullen, thanked one of them, who's 54. It's based out of Florida. Troubling professional history at the surprise of no one. She spent most of last year under investigation by the state of Alabama, which eventually revoked her medical license in November, 2 months before Berquam entered the hospital. So she had her license revoked because of this. Um, so we're looking at people who had their medical licenses revoked because of their poor professional history and being investigated. Um, let's see. From the evidence submitted, the matter comes before the Medical Licensure Committee of Alabama for a probation compliance hearing on October 27th. So here, by order of the Medical Licensure Commission, Alabama, dated February 24th, 2021, Cullen was fined $10,000 and her license to practice medicine in the state of Alabama was revoked. The revocation was stayed and her license was placed on probation subjected to the following: successful completion of a medical education course on medical ethics, approved by the Alabama board within 6 months, and payment of the $10,000 fine accessed within 6-month period. She did neither. She didn't do either one. She didn't pay the money, and she didn't go to the course. Looks like she doesn't care about her medical license. She didn't care. So she lost her medical license because of that. Because of, let's see, why? What did she do? The investigation. Dr. Cullen was uncooperative, evasive, slow to respond to board's requests. She didn't respond to repeated attempts to contact her failed to provide information the commission needed to make a determination on the charges against her license. I want to know what the charges were. The board presented evidence at the November 2020 hearing that Dr. Cullen's relationship with Bronson Medical and her ordering of genetic tests and other medical tests were consistent with known healthcare fraud schemes that are currently being carried out across the country. So she got involved in fraud. She performed telemedicine services, signed off on medical tests, and reviewed charts. That Dr. Cullen did not interact directly with any patients in the work she did for Bronson Medical, and that she performed no physical examination. She was just signing off on them to do things without actually seeing a patient. So here you go. That's what we're looking at. And this is the problem that we're having. The fringe doctors. The fringe doctors that do this crap. And then we get bandwagon bias. Everybody starts buying into this stuff. Oh, it's a no longer functioning website. She pleaded guilty in 2020 to federal healthcare fraud charges. So you can get this here. But when you're dealing with people, they don't want to consider the truth on this. They don't want to look at things that contradict their particular perspective because it's painful. That requires them to have to quiet that frenzied, scary side of their brain. Oh my goodness. Fraud charges. 6 charges in New Jersey in a $100 million telemedicine scheme. 3 men admit to guilt. Okay, so that was okay. They admitted to guilt. Its owner pleaded guilty. So, despite all of this other crap, Cullen can still practice medicine in North Carolina and Florida. And she's now using those medical licenses to prescribe ivermectin on behalf of the frontline doctors. So it's insane. All of this is insane. How many patients have to suffer? Usually state agencies will go through and do stuff. The North Carolina board, meanwhile, would not confirm whether an investigation was underway. But Brian Blankenship, the board's deputy general counsel, says investigations take time. Who knows what's going to happen to those after 5 or 10 years' time after one has contracted COVID? I know, right? How many patients have to suffer? So it's insane. It's insane. But this is what's happening. You get this few small fringe scientists or fringe doctors that confirm the biases of the really loud, oh my God, everything's going nuts side of the brain. It makes them feel better. And they think they're part of this special group that has all of the correct information and the rest of the world is wrong. So now they get a little bit of comfort knowing, hey, the rest of the world is wrong. And, I got my group who makes me feel comfortable. I get a bit of comfort in knowing I'm not the only person that's afraid. And these people are making me feel better. That's exactly what's happening. And it's crazy. It's crazy. But this is where we're at now, This is where we're at. Yeah, the rational side of the brain's being neglected. And to be fair, I understand why it's happening, but it's at a point that we're going to have to start working with that side of people's brains in order to get them to listen. They I hate to say it, we might get to a point to where we need our frontliners to and nurses already kind of do this anyway, to just be, compassionate and say, "I understand you're really scared right now. We all are. But I need you to it's like there's no care. Well, I'm not saying no care. It is a very slow process. You're right, Trisha. It is a slow process. Um, that's something that I had to deal with when teaching evolution to a bunch of farm kids in the Bible Belt in high school. They had been told that this was evil and terrible and mean and bad, and if you listen to it, you're gonna burn in hell, and I knew what they were being told because I grew up out here. There was no care there for them. They had been told, "You're gonna fight," and so I approached it in a different way, and I'm like, "It's okay. You can believe that if you want to. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna force you to believe anything you don't wanna believe. It's alright." And coming at it from a place of caring seemed to help. It didn't get through to every kid, but when you're presented with a huge amount of evidence, and if it conflicts with something that you have believed your entire life, it's extremely painful because you've got to come to terms with the fact you've been lied to and lied to people who say that they love you and care about you. So is it this nice person or is it my family? Is it, who is it? It's painful. And it may not have been intentional lying, but it's painful. So when you have somebody with an overactive side of their brain that's like, the world's burning and we're all going to die and this, and that rational side is just like, hey, it's gonna be all right, man. Just chill. Let's go talk to some experts. That's really quiet. You almost have to kind of go in and say, you know what, I understand how you're feeling. It's pretty scary. So that's where you kind of go with what's the goal of interacting with people like that? And that's where it gets hard. What's the goal? If the goal is I don't want to have this conversation, then you just block and move on, right? But if it's um I want to try to help this person, then you're gonna have to work and navigate all through that, and it's difficult. Reverse psychology always works with my patients when I flip it and get them to admit something they have done wrong. I see, Trisha. Guess that is what was different for me. I realized from a very young age that my family lied to me, so I never believed anything that couldn't be verified, says Purple. I understand. And it's hard, I grew up in an atmosphere where I was constantly told I was not smart enough to be a scientist. I had to have Barbie dolls, and, my grandparents, being a woman was a disability. Know, uh, and they favored my male cousins over me. Even to the point that and I found out recently that they financially supported my male cousins, and got them shoes and clothing and food and pay for all their football equipment, and my mom was working her fingers to the bone. We almost lost our house. Uh, they never bought us clothes. They never did any of that, um, for me, uh, because my mom didn't have a lot of sons. And that's painful, find that out. And so to be gaslit your whole life and having to undo that, it's hard. It's hard. So I get it. But even with this ivermectin stuff, it's just still, it's just weird. It's weird. And so bringing it back around, um, I'm an overachiever and I've had to overqualify myself to prove to myself that I could do it because I was told I could never do the things. And it's still painful when I hear that family still think I can't do a thing. And then and so I work even harder, and it's become second nature now for me to work on the level and learn on the level that I do, which has made me an excellent scientist, an excellent educator. It's made me a great communicator. I'm a better person for the work that I've done. But when somebody says that my work is phenomenal, I don't expect that. I don't. I expect them to tell me what I need to do better. Um, and when I have a boss who's sitting there, he's like, "You did in 2 weeks, but what we couldn't do in a semester, and you've been doing stuff we couldn't do in years." And I'm sitting there going, "It was just it was just what easy for me." So it's like it blows my mind away with the stuff that I've managed to do when people allow me the space to do it, and to know that I may not be able to stay with this organization in the fall. It's mind blowing to me because I did all this work, not just because I think I love it, but because I wanted to prove to myself that everybody else that gaslit me was wrong. And that's really just it's like I'm like, I'm an overachiever out of sheer necessity, uh, because of the sexism in academia and stuff like that, and I don't want anybody else to go through that. So it's just I genuinely love what I do. And yeah, I guess it's a lot of work. But it's stuff that I feel like I've like my boss said, I'm Liam Neeson in Taken. I have honed a set of skills. I've managed to develop a whole bunch of set of skills out of um, sheer necessity of my life, learning things and growing. I can do stuff other people can't because I decided I'm just going to do this now. And I did. And once I learned I could do the things, and I was interviewed by a student for a project this week, and they asked me, um, what because I hadn't been to school in like 10 years, and I went back and I had to take organic, and after I dropped out of college twice, went back, got my first degree in 2011, and once I got that degree, and it was in science, and it was in biology, and I survived organic chemistry somehow and biochem and all this stuff, and I'm like, "You mean I can do this stuff?" There was no stopping me. I picked up 3 more degrees, 2 of them graduate degrees. I don't have a PhD yet. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But it's like, I just kept picking it up because I loved it. I was like, "You mean I actually can do this?" And so I told that student, "Don't ever let anybody tell you can't do something. If you don't wanna do something, that's one thing, but if you wanna do something, you just go freaking do it, and you just keep going until you get it done." And I did, and I'm like, I'm amazed at my own growth, but at the same time, the work I do now, I don't see as phenomenal or amazing because it's stuff that I've just always done. But apparently, not everybody else does that. So it's like applying at NASA and applying at these other colleges and stuff. People like Doc, I sent him the link to the NASA job. I'm like, "Okay, serious question. Should I apply at this?" And he said, "Yes." I mean, he'd be honest with me. He was like, "Yeah, no, don't do that. That's." But it's like he said, "Yes." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll give it a shot." You know? I've done stuff at NASA before anyway, at least with the NASA social. I applied to that and I got in. That was kinda cool. Went and saw, some stuff. That was fun. Met a Nobel Prize laureate. Got to Francis Crick Institute, got invited there to do science communication for them. I've gotten to do amazing things, and I recognize that not everybody gets to do that. I've met Kevin Smith. I've done all kinds of cool stuff, and I'm just like, people are like, "This is awesome. You've done all these things." And I'm just like, "Yeah, I guess so." It just my brain doesn't work like that, stupid anxiety. It's weird. It's weird when you're told you can't do something and you manage to do amazing things, and they're not amazing things to you. There's stuff that you enjoyed and people think it's amazing, and you're like, "Okay." So thank you guys for that. Thank you, Trisha and Maya. I love what I do, and I wanna keep doing it. Your odds are astronomical, but that's literally what NASA does. I've just wanted to do things, um, and when I wanna do something, I'm like, "I'm gonna do this." So I got to meet Kevin Smith through Twitter. I think I've told this story many times, but through Twitter, I got to meet him, and I've been on a couple of his podcasts. I've been on stage with him before at the Lovitz Theater a couple of times. Um, I wanna go see him again. It's been a while. I think last time I saw him was, what, 10 years ago, maybe? 10 or 11 years ago? But he's a great human. Um, and I just decided I'm just gonna keep going. And, I met him right around the time that I graduated with my first degree, and I was so excited, and so just, like, all this stuff was just happening. But it's weird. So just keep going and do the best you can, and don't let people tell you you can't do something. Um, just keep trying. Alright, I'm gonna read Mr. Rogers and let y'all go. God, this was a long version. It's 2 hours and 14 minutes. Here we go. The World According to Mr. Rogers. It's really bright. Okay. And this is the challenges of inner discipline. It came to me ever so slowly that the best way to know the truth was to begin trusting what my inner truth was and trying to share it, not right away, only after I had worked hard at trying to understand it. So that was Mr. Rogers again. It came to me ever so slowly that the best way to know the truth was to begin trusting what my inner truth was and trying to share it, not right away, but only after I had worked hard at trying to understand it. And that's really what it is, right? Um, Trying to understand who you are and trying to work that out, that's a lifelong challenge. Um, and when you figure something out, it's exciting and wonderful, and you get to share that with people, and then they get to share those things with you, people you care about, and you're like, "That's so awesome," you know? But knowing you gotta work hard at trying to understand what's going on the inside. And that's why I'm a big advocate of therapy. God, I freaking love it. It's great to just pay a person to sit there and just say, I'm just going to dump all my stuff on you. And then they help you sort through it. It's like you have a big old purse full of crap and you dump it out on the table, and the therapist sits there with you, and then you sort through it and you try to figure out what's going on. It's great. And that's one way you can do that. Came to me ever so slowly that the best way to know the truth was to begin trusting what my inner truth was and trying to share it, not right away, but only after I had worked hard at trying to understand it. Self reflection, man. We need more of that, don't we? The World According to Mr. Rogers. So I will end it with this. You always make each day special for me. You know how, by just your being you. I'm going to try to go live next weekend. Got hit pretty hard with a thing this week, but I can at least probably give you an update then. I'm glad you guys like the long streams. Thank you guys for being here. I'm so happy I get to spend time with you guys, learning about science and growing and stuff. It's awesome. So I will see you guys next time.